What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill and myself, Scott McNally. All of our programming is brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys for your support. We are brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there for great quality supplements, including like basically the cheapest carb powder you can get, Carbo Load. Check it out. You can get like a bag of it. If you use 25 grams intra-workout, you can get 30 servings for 10 freaking bucks. So if you're strapped for cash and you want some intra-workout carbs, check out True Nutrition. Use our code THINK because that helps us, and of course it'll get you a discount. Also, we're brought to you by supplementsource.ca. For Canadians, they have great deals that change week to week. Skip, we got a bunch of stuff. We're going to rapid fire this. And for starters, we've got one from Patreon from Nick. He asked us about TBol. I did an actual I went into the TBol, like the history of it with Dave Crossland. So if the people haven't seen that yet, they'll see that next from Dave and I. And we talked all about like the East Germans using oral turinabol back through. Like they had did you know, first of all, Skip, they were giving it to girls from like age 11 on that were Olympic athletes, swimmers and runners and stuff, and didn't even tell them that it was an anabolic. They're like, oh, here's your vitamins. They did it for like 20 years in East Germany, man. And guess what?
And I laugh.
All those girls won.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I laugh. It's certainly not funny. If my daughter was one of those people, I'd be pretty upset. At the same time, is anybody really surprised? I mean, they were not only so dominant, but let's be fair. They weren't very attractive either. There's
been much talk about that, you know.
Yeah, it's like something's going on here that's not like from the other countries or the other areas.
So the question, though, was a really simple question for any of the shows. Now you get it on too, Nick. He says, any experience with TBol? Does TBol give you the same euphoric effect as DBol? Just wondering because I love how I feel on DBol, but I don't care for the extra estrogen. Thanks, Scott. Love all the shows. And I hope I don't cause a TBol trend as a result of this topic. Who knows what'll happen? I'll tell you what, man, it's not super popular now. But what's your experience? Have you used it before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I use everything. Pretty much everything. Yeah.
Dude, it's one of the few I hadn't, but years ago, like I remember circa 2005, man, it was a very common compound, right?
Yeah, it was. Does it go back that far? Am I really getting? That's 20 years, but okay, maybe. Yeah. I had it later than that, but you're probably right.
Guys were like,
may have been more popular, and I didn't mess with it right away. I'm like, okay, I'll try it, and it didn't get to it for 5 more years. I don't know.
Yeah, guys didn't want the DBol bloat. Would kickstart their cycles with TBol instead. They called it a dry DBol, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. But I think that comparison is not fair with my experience with it. And to be honest with you, clients and friends weren't overwhelmed, thinking that it was awesome either. I used it a few times, and I don't have anything bad to say about it other than I think, this is the best way to explain it, a watered-down Anavar. I'd probably rather take Primobolan tabs. I just didn't get very much out of it. If I had the choice between DBol and TBol, it's a no-brainer. I'd go DBol. Of course, I'd go Anadrol because I just am a bigger Anadrol fan. And that's a preference thing more than anything. I mean, clearly DBol is legendary. And it's old school, and we've talked about this before on the other shows. It probably doesn't get the respect it deserves because the new generation kind of thinks it's an antiquated compound. But there's no denying that it's an insanely good drug. TBol, though, when I shelved it, I never came back to it. Really? I don't know if I have had a client. Let's see, this is 2024. I don't know that I've had a client use, and I probably have, but the point is it's so infrequent. I probably haven't had 2 clients use it in 7 years, 8 years. Just not a very common. And here's what I think. I think if it was really good, people would be using it. That's just the way our industry works. So not a big fan. Not a big fan.
Okay. Do you remember what you dosed it at? I remember it was considered to be like 50 was a standard, but then TBol was 50 at the time too. It was the standard.
Taken a lot of drugs over the years. I'm a professional drug user, Scott.
I figured you would remember
what. No, there are times where I run cycles in the last 3 years where I go, I have to write this down because there's no way I'm going to remember. Even in 5 months. I'll tell you what I remember in 5 months. How many units to draw in every pin that I drop. That's how I write my cycles down. I don't even half the time remember the total dosage, which doesn't mean that I'm just out there and doing this crazy and I don't want to know what the total dose. I just don't. I have it in my brain. I know what it is, and then I forget about it and I don't remember. So I have to make those notes. There's no way I can remember that stuff.
There's going to be some people that can't relate to that because they're newer to gear, and so they're like, I'm on 500 of this, 300 of that. How could Skip possibly forget? Well, guess what? You do it for 30, 40 years, and you'll get to Skip's point. You'll be like, I don't know, half mil. And I knew what it was. I wrote it down, and it makes sense. And now I don't have to remember it. I just have to remember half mil.
Right. When I onboarded with Justin, I'm like, it was so funny because I caught myself. I'm like, God, you asked so many questions. And I'm laughing because I've never onboarded with anybody before. So then I'm like, this is work. Like, this takes time. Like, I had to go back through my phone and come up with the dosages and everything else. I got done with the gear, and I'm like, okay, on to the training, then on to the nutrition and the diet. It's like, man, every client I take on has to do the same thing. It must suck.
That's funny, man. All right, so that's enough for TBol then. Got another one, growth. Okay, question for the next show. I know it's been covered in the past, but it's been a while. GH, when is the best time for your shots? At 5 IU a day, would you break it up into 2 injections and last IM or sub-Q?
Oh, boy. Get 10 guys, 10 trainers on, well-respected trainers, not just trainers, and they're going to give you 9 different answers. I will fall back on, because I usually do, fall back on the conversation that I had with, say, like Justin and Steve Kugel and people with the round table back in the days of IM. And we pretty much laughed and came up with this conclusion. If you're going to respond to it, you're going to respond to it no matter when you take it. If you're not going to respond to it, you're not going to all of a sudden go, oh, now I respond to it. And it's awesome because I'm taking it at the right time. That's just not how GH works. However, we still have our protocols of what we still think is the best time.
We sure do.
So I'm not big on pre-bed. And the only reason is this is personal for me. Because I've tracked my sleep for so long, I do see a connection and a pattern over time that if I take my growth before I go to bed, I don't have as good a quality sleep, especially when it comes to REM.
We
other
talked
people
about
will
that.
say the same. Yeah. And other people have said they do.
I remember when we talked about that, like it was like 5+ years ago, and either you or I mentioned it before a show, and we both kind of looked at each other because I've only at that time had heard people say, oh, I take GH and it makes me sleep so much better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it started. There's 2 ways it could start. Number one is you take it because at night the body is used to the endogenous, like the pulse of, GH while you sleep during REM cycles. So it mimics that. Immediately, my brain went to, why would I want to mimic it when I would get that while I sleep? I don't want to interrupt that. I want to still take advantage of that, even if it's relatively small fraction of what I would get from growth hormone. But that's just my brain thinking. That's not me applying that to any type of study or any type of science, to be honest.
It's bro science, but
yeah, exactly. The other thing is on the flip side, I did notice when I first start upping or when I first start taking GH, if I haven't taken it for a while, which is rare because I usually take it all the time now, or if I up the dosage, I will find myself tired. So I wonder if people have thought over the years, well, it makes me tired, therefore it's beneficial for me to take at bedtime. And I've had clients who they sleep great on it, and they say, I sleep better on growth hormone before I go to bed than at any other time. Okay, if that's the case. I think what it comes down to is it may be far more individual and not as important based on the long or like the big picture or long game of gains and how effective it is. Just the little things of whether you may sleep better on it versus not sleep better on it, whether you feel that there is some, I've heard people say, well, if I take it before I train, I have much better pumps. I've never noticed that because the pumps I get massive pumps anyway. I don't use pre-workout. I don't use any type of, vasodilator. I take Cialis daily, but that's just because I'm old. Just kidding. I had a bottle at a time, but bottle a day. But I don't have that, so I can't relate to that personally either. I'll say this though, to make a long story longer. My method is upon waking, and if I'm going to split the dose, which I usually split it, I'll do one dose a day until roughly about 6 IU. If I get over 6 IU or over, then I split it. And it's not because there's no real reason. We can fall back on, there's more lipolysis when you split the dose. But you know what? Just like Andrew is a bolus kind of guy with GH. He'll take 10 IU, arbitrary number, but because I don't know what he takes, but 10 IU at once, where I will take 10 IU and split it up. There's just something in my brain, because I'm OCD, that I feel like if I take it upon waking and I take it post-workout with my schedule, that's roughly every 12 hours. So my brain says, oh, that's more of a steady, even keel. The body can get used to this type of dosing protocol versus taking it, as a bolus shot or trying to take it 3 times a day. I won't take it 3 times a day. I've been up to the 15 IU of Serostim, and I won't take it, 5. I'll split it in half at 7.5. I dose it twice a day. So upon waking, I can't tell you that it's any more or less beneficial, but that's how it works for me in my brain as I run it. I take it personally every 12 hours.
Tanya Miller, who's hanging with us, she says, what is it? Team Evil Genius, including myself, has gotten several reports of negative sleep effects when taking it at night. How about that? That's Broderick Chavez's group that she works with. So
okay, right.
There are some more people on board with that. I've done
first
thing
in
the morning. Thank you for
knowing the difference between effect and effect too. I appreciate that, Tanya.
Oh, she's smart. She's a smart cookie.
I noticed those things.
So, what was I going to say? I've taken it first thing in the morning. I've taken it pre-workout. I've taken it post. I kind of like the pre-workout. And honestly, it just goes back to having heard Serrano talk about it one time. And he said, and I don't go high with it, but it'd be like 2-3 units. And 2-3 units pre-workout. I feel like the debate to me, pre and post, is if I take it pre, it's still there post anyway.
Sure. You know what I mean? I can agree with that. Yeah. But I still think it's splitting hairs. That's why I say I'm not saying you're wrong. All I'm saying is I don't know if there's any real difference. And here's
I don't know if there is either.
When I'm getting ready to go to the gym, my brain is like, okay, get your bag. Make sure you get your headphones. Make sure you get your wallet. Make sure you have your liter of workout. Oh, got to make sure I have my insulin with me. I got to take it in my eyeglass case. It's got to be in my bag. I go to the tanner before I go to the gym.
There's a lot to remember if you're doing an extra shake. You got to have your food and all that stuff.
It just becomes for me easier post workout. But yeah, I can't.
And you're taking it in the morning too, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So you're just kind of just swimming in Serostim at that point.
Swimming in my IGF levels are at like 1100.
Dang, are they really?
No, but that would be awesome. And that's another rabbit hole too, because that I don't want to go down, because we have the 3 of us, that I still stand by the fact that IGF levels are not the only indicator as to whether you respond well to GH, or the only indicator to gauge whether your GH is actually working well or is good. Because generics can give people high IGF levels, and Serostim may not give you as high, but you can still respond to it. We don't know everything about it and what those mechanisms are at play. And I don't know that. I'll tell you, the only thing that I am pretty certain on, that I'm confident about with high IGF levels, is over time, I think they're dangerous for longevity.
Oh, yeah.
There is a connection between high IGF levels and being unhealthy. That is pretty much inarguable. That you can't argue that one, I don't think.
Yeah. All right. How about every time I do 100 rep calf sets, my calves are ruined for more than a week? Do you think that's even useful? I've been trying to grow my calves for years, some success, but not as much as everything else.
Yeah, I love this question. I responded to him on the forum, but I want to...
The forum. Are we in 2006?
Yeah, we are. In my brain, I'm still in 2006. That's where I live.
It's called YouTube, Skip.
Yeah,
it's called YouTube.
It's not social media. It's the forum. But there was one thing I didn't catch right away. When he said that he was sore for a week or more,
yeah,
I took that as, I'm just a lot more sore than I normally am. That is a long time to be sore. But I will say this, and I touched on this when I responded to him. Calves are the most difficult muscle, arguably, for everybody, even someone who has a great physique, usually, to grow, unless you were fat for any length of time prior to that. If you ever see an older woman or an older guy with really good calves who doesn't work out, they were really, really heavy when they were younger for a lot of years. It's hard to grow calves, so you need to bury them with a stimulus that they're not used to, and they carry us around all day. So do weird, out-of-the-box shit that can just stress the hell out of the calves. The 100 rep sets I used to do with my buddy Dion when I was in high school. We would do donkey calf raises off a cinder block in my basement, because we trained in my basement. We weren't just... It may sound bad, but his balls were on my back in my basement. That just doesn't sound
he was standing on your back? He was sitting on your back?
Old school. Right, yeah, they were old school. I mean, I didn't have an Icarian donkey calf machine in my basement when I was a teenager.
I didn't know if you're holding dumbbells or
nope, I had his balls on my back. I had his balls on my back, basically. And we would do 100 rep sets, but we would do them in a rest pause. So we may only get 40 or 50. Yeah. And then we wouldn't stop. We would stop the set, but he wouldn't get off my back because apparently I had balls on my back. I would shake. I would do what we call shakes. I would shake one leg to get a little blood in there, shake the other leg. And
then he'd shake.
Yeah, he would shake too. Shake the balls. Anyway, and then you work. You just continue to count. So it would be 42, shake them out. Then it would be 58, then you shake, and you couldn't stop till you got to 100.
Okay.
It took me 10 years to grow calves. I don't know if that played a part in it, but what did play a part in it was doing those things out of the box, like just destroying the calf. I don't count reps. I just go until I cannot tolerate the pain anymore. I'm not a big high-intensity drop set, rest pause kind of guy, but with calves, it's a different story. I would do whatever my brain could tolerate. And I would train them frequently because they recover relatively quickly. In his case, I don't think they're bad doing them, but if you're that sore, that's a long time to be sore. So you may want to back off a little bit, build into being able to do those shock sets, and they have to be infrequent. You can't do them all the time or they're not going to have the impact. Yeah. But you can't do them so infrequently that you're sore for over a week either. Yeah. So there's a balance in there that you have to find. And as you do those 100 rep sets or those high intensity, whatever you're using for high intensity, the calves are going to become accustomed to that, and it's not going to be as effective moving forward. So you still have to change it. You have to constantly change that. Oh, the other thing that's important is the weight is less important than the full stretch to full squeeze. The mechanics are huge because when you walk around all day, the calves are used to that mid-range movement. Yeah. Not full stretch, not full contraction. And this comes back to Dante. Dante said the same thing. Drive the heels down, drive the heels up. So there are many times where I'm waiting on a seated calf machine over the years and somebody will get off it and they'll be like, oh, you probably want me to leave all these weights on. I'm like, no, I'm actually going to go all the way up and all the way down and want to say that's why you have no calves. It took me years to figure it out. And I come down and I started a plate. I might only go up to 2.5 plates. They've got 4 plates and they do that little bouncy thing. Oh, yeah. If you're going to do the bouncy thing and you're going to be mid-range on your calves, don't even bother with it. Your calves are just yawning. They don't care about that, and nothing that will not cause growth. It's just arguably not any stimulus at all.
Yeah. I'm not going to add too much just because my calves were genetic, but I will say that I've seen two people that I've listened to who have growing calves, and I usually share their suggestions, which are a little bit different than yours. Okay. One being John Meadows, who trained him as absolutely heavy as he could, and he would train him, I think it was as often as he could. And then Dave Palumbo would train him as often as he could too. Both of them said whenever they weren't sore, they would train him again. And Dave's protocol was like 4 heavy sets. I remember him saying, get up to that heavy weight as fast as you can. Don't mess around with the lighter weight. And once again, both of them said the same thing as you, full range of motion all the way up, all the way down.
I'm not against the heavy. Not to the point of limiting the stretch to squeeze. That's all.
Yeah. And what I'm getting at too is, and this kind of ties into a question somebody else had, what I'm getting at is you can take what Skip has said and you can take what these guys have said. That's how we start forming our own opinions, you know? Right. And in fact, I'll get back to that later, I guess, because we do have a bunch of stuff. But why don't we rapid fire some of these, Skip? Because we've got a lot, man.
Okay, fair enough.
How about this one? Question for the next show. Currently on 600 Primo, 800 test SIP. I suffer from reactive hypoglycemia, so I have carbs. I have carbs. I guess it means when I go hypo. Do you have any advice on how to get more carbs in? He's currently on 170. Do you have any advice on how to get more carbs in? He's currently on 170 grams of carbs, 70 fat, 430 protein. Thanks from the UK. That's a lot of protein.
I saw this question and I need to be clear on this. Is he saying that the gear, because some of the responses were that the gear is causing the hypoglycemia?
I don't think he is. I think he may just be giving us background. But then again, though, the gear doesn't really relate, in my opinion, to what the issue would be. You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna, because I don't want to touch on the gear because I have strong opinions on it, and I don't know. It's almost one of those things that if we did a deep dive, I'd want the three of us to go into it and just kind of, I don't want to say duke it out, but Andrew may feel differently than I do, but I don't feel that the gear is related. I know someone responded with Tren, someone responded with TBol. I don't think that's correct. So if he wants to get more carbs in, you know what? If we're going to rapid fire this one is better for a freaking topic, if I'm being honest. I can't. Yeah. I mean, add more carbs. There's a rabbit hole there with the hypoglycemia based on carbs and things like that. So it's I can't really rapid fire it. I'm not trying to bail on you on the question, but I think it would be better served if we were to kind of deep dive on it.
All right. Well, are more carbs the answer then? I guess let's try to.
And that's right. And I would say it may not be. But at the same time, there are other things that are going on, like what is his spacing, of his meals? When is the hypoglycemia happening?
Yeah.
Is it relative to training? Is it early in the day? Is it when he wakes up? Is it there? There's just a lot of other. I don't know what's going on there. Is he using the GLP-1? Is he? I don't.
Sometimes I've had people that tell me I go hypo not every day, but consistently. They check in and they say, "Hey, I went hypo day before last after my workout before my next meal." And it kind of perks my ear up, and I'll say, "Okay, I won't do anything if that happened once, but I'll say, keep an eye on that. If it happens again, text me. Let me know." And then we take it from there. If something starts becoming a pattern, then usually it's, well, where is it happening? That's my first question. If somebody says, I went hypo, my first question is, where did you go hypo? When? And if it happens more than once, then we change that particular part of the diet.
Sure. Here's the short answer. Move your meals closer together. If you go hypo, then you need more food and you're crashing. A lot of hypoglycemia will happen after the post-workout meal, especially if the carbs are very, very quick. And the answer to that is, okay, you went hypo an hour after. Eat your next meal an hour after. I mean, I don't want to say it's a dumb question, but it's a very simple answer. you don't need to fix the meal prior. You just need to eat. Your body is ready to suck up more nutrients, and it needs more nutrients. So what do you do when you go? I mean, it's along the same lines of if someone is diabetic and they go hypo, they take in sugar right away. They're not waiting; they're taking sugar right. The body needs it. The body is telling you, "I need it badly now."
I wonder what kind of carbs he's using too.
Sure,
like
absolutely.
Are you eating Pop-Tarts and going hypo off that, or are you eating rice or sweet potato? Because I feel like you're a lot less likely to go hypo, I guess is what I'm getting at with a complex carb. I like that though.
More fiber or more fat, same thing.
What if you were to do that, Skip? What if it was an hour and a half, even if you didn't change his protein? What if you just like reduced the protein and added another meal in? Protein's the same across the board, and then added more carbs in there. Like that's basically, I think, a solution to what you were saying. That's a way you could apply that, right?
He could arguably add more carbs in, keep the same amount of time between meals, and still crash even harder. I honestly, if it were me, I would move the meals closer together.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
Use the same amount of protein, but split it up into say 6 meals instead of 5. You know what I mean?
Sure. To move them closer together. Absolutely. I misunderstood you. If that's what you're saying, I completely agree.
Yeah. Yep. Fats can help too, or fiber. Fats will slow down digestion. Fiber will slow down digestion. So if it's at a specific spot, I would maybe consider dropping that in the meal previous to slow it down.
I think you mean Pacific.
Did you say Pacific?
You need to be more Pacific.
Oh, more Pacific. Yes. Okay, let's see. Heard a while back you guys talk about thick red blood and no eating meat, doing cardio daily, and no vitamin C. Anything else to help me? I have to donate tomorrow. I get head pressure, red skin, and anxiety from high hematocrit. Any other suggestions? Hector. He misunderstood me. That was from a podcast I did with Scott. It was advice Dante gave me. I had 47, I think 47 point something hematocrit, and I scheduled to do phlebotomy. It took 4 weeks for it to get approved and for me to get my appointment. And 4 weeks later, when I went in, 57. And
I was like 47, bro. That's damn good.
57. Okay. And when I went to go do the phlebotomy, I was at 50.1 4 weeks later. Ooh. So I had followed Dante's suggestion. He said, "Hey, stop eating as much red meat." He didn't say stop eating meat. Red meat, you're basically reducing your iron intake.
Yeah, iron.
Yeah, reduce the vitamin C, which is going to help you to deliver iron or absorb iron, and do cardio. Cardio, get more oxygen into your body. And I dropped like 7 points. So he didn't say don't eat meat, period, though. It was the red meat. Any other suggestions, though, or thoughts? I know that there's a huge clapback now about not doing phlebotomy. It used to be the thing that everybody did. I know you were one of the early people to talk about it, and people aren't doing phlebotomy as much as they used to. I think we have more education, but he's dealing with symptoms. So if he's dealing with issues from thick blood, do you have any thoughts on how he'd get that down?
Yeah, and that's an important part of the equation, because it also implies that his blood pressure is likely up as well. The redness and things like that, that's not good. Otherwise, I would fall back on, those parameters, we're bodybuilders. And this is a very, very short explanation of it, because again, it could rabbit hole, but it's those numbers. And I learned this because of the elevation in Colorado and all the issues that I was dealing with when I was there. And then I come to sea level and everything else. You have different variations, different allowable parameters based on elevation because of the oxygen, the ability for your body to take in oxygen and use it. I just don't believe that the higher numbers are anywhere near as dangerous. Nowhere near. And there is not a causative. That's a matter of fact. Even Dante can't say there's a causative. I hate to say that because I'm not picking a fight with Dante. He's incredibly intelligent and he knows his shit.
Dante wouldn't say he's not saying that you should though.
Yeah, I don't think he has said that either. I wouldn't want it to get back to him that's what I was saying that he was saying. What I mean is I have spoken with some clients who are literally specialists in like blood pathology and stuff like that. They're doctors, and they have matter of factly said, one said laughingly, it's correlative, it's not causative. There are other factors that you have to factor in. Oh, we see high hematocrit, and this can be said for any marker on a basic blood panel. It's not one marker. It's how, we've got a high marker. So then we have to look at other things and we have to see how the puzzle fits together. So without going further into that, I would say that his symptoms are far more important than the actual numbers. How does he bring it down? You gave, I mean, that's all I really have with that, other than if he's on gear, he needs to decrease the gear or he needs to get off the gear. Because if you want to see your numbers drop rapidly, just get off the gear. That's the fastest way for them. Even as long as I've been doing it and as much as I have taken over the years, in 8 weeks, my blood will clear. Like literally within 2 or 3 days, my numbers are back well within normal range and I'm good to go. Now, where I also agree with Dante is this roller coaster of up and down. I don't know if that's a good idea either. You do your blood work when you're when you're off gear, and you go, oh, I'm good, I'm healthy again, and then you get right back on. You need to see and contrast your blood work while you're on in the heat, in the thick of the fire versus when you're off, and see what that disparity is. And it's equally as bad if you're on and it doesn't. People will say, well, I'm off, so my numbers are good. You're going right back on. You're spending, I spend more time than I do off. So my numbers while I'm on are far more important. So until they get egregious and they're just off the charts, there's RDW, there's how long the red blood cells live, whether they're being excreted, what the difference in the particle size is, how big are those red blood cells. There's a lot there that you're not going to see. Oh, this is my hematocrit number. But he needs to get off gear. This is issue. Get off gear. There's the short answer.
To be clear, though, Dante never was saying like you should donate or you should get it down. I asked him, how do you do it? So he gave me the answer. Gotcha. That was the only. So just to be clear, in that conversation, that was the only thing. I didn't say should I. I said how.
Right. And let me say this too. I am not at all saying because
he's not anti higher hematocrit.
100%. But the implication could be for people who don't know that, Dante is saying this supplement does this supplement does this to keep it low, to keep it low, to keep it low. And their implication is, I can't have it high. That's all I'm saying. I'm not in any way implying that he's saying that, oh my God, you're going to die if your hematocrit is 52. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay. I'm glad we said that, cleared that up then, Also, too, if you need a CPAP, if you have any type of lung issues, your hematocrit will be higher. So I definitely, does he snore? Does his partner tell him that he snores a lot? Even if you don't snore a lot, you could still have, sleep apnea. And that's going to pose all sorts of other issues. So I'll throw that one out. I feel like even when my hematocrit is higher, I can't tell you what's actually happening. But using nattokinase, I do feel better. And I went up to 6,000 FUs. I like to say that. and that would be, I think, my only concern for people that have marginally higher hematocrit would be a potential higher risk of blood clotting.
Mm-hmm. And then you have platelets, and they're not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it branches out into these other things too. Where are your platelets? Where's your hydration? There's a lot there. One thing that I have seen is we have a heart attack issue, or arguably have a heart attack issue in our industry.
Yeah.
But we don't seem to have a stroke issue. I mean, I can't even think of.
That's a good point.
I've not heard of
George Peterson. But that was one case. That's not but. Yep.
It's
you're right though.
It's not common, though the heart attacks arguably could be. Then we could go down the rabbit hole of, My sister, when she was 29, had a heart attack, died in her sleep. She was 29, never took a steroid in her life. There are people who will have heart attacks who are on steroids that it may not have anything to do with steroids too. So there's that.
Yeah, and the more people that are bodybuilding, the more chance you may be one of those people, right?
And using gear, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. All right. That's a good rapid fire. Let's see what else we got. We're doing our best, guys. I don't know if this is a question or more of a comment. Okay, I screen capped it. We'll see what happens here. I don't remember the episode, but there was one that Skip was stating he acted differently to Tren Ace versus Tren E. I had done Tren E, and honestly, it had made me question my source because I just wasn't seeing the gains I thought I should be getting. Fast forward to the cycle, I started with Tren E, halfway switched to Tren A, and I immediately saw a difference. All the gear is from the same UGL.
Not surprised.
I mean, it's possible it was even fake gear.
Look,
but I wonder how long.
I'm just rapid fire.
Oh, I see. I wonder how long he was on the Tren E for.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Tren Hex Tren E. I have pretty much said to myself I will not use anything except Tren Ace anymore. And quite frankly, I recommend the same thing to my clients.
Me too.
Not solely because of my response. I don't do that. Good trainers don't do that. But once I started talking about the differences, I think a lot of clients and a lot of other people who listen to us and stuff have looked at their Tren E and Tren Hex closer, and they've said, man, I think that's how I felt on it. Boy, that makes more sense because this happened. I just think that I have Tren Ace up here.
Yeah.
And I have Tren Hex and Tren E so far down that they might as well not even be the same compounds, to be honest with you. And I think that people tended to gravitate towards the longer esters because, Tren Ace is so bad and it's got such a, it's going to kill your kidneys and your, that sort of thing. Tren is Tren. The only thing different is the ester, quite frankly. And look, we made it. I used to call it pond scum because there would be stuff floating in it and a film on top that you'd shake the bottle before you before you drew from it, because you're doing pellets and you're doing it in a coffee filter in this very bathtub sort of esque way of making it. Boy, did it work! It was great. I say don't use it. I would tell the vast majority, but Tren Ace works. It works very, very well. So many people report that it's so much better. Why do people have to use it? It's almost this mentality sometimes of, I'm going to use this because no one's using it. This is coming right. We're looking for the next compound. We did the same thing with Met, and then that one peaked and went away too.
It really did, man. Do you remember how popular it was 4 years ago?
You know what it does, and I'm sure our generation did it. My generation did it, I'm sure.
We did.
There is this thing where you go, it's not just gear, it's training, it's nutrition. They must not have thought of this. Nobody thought of that movement. No one thought of that gear combination. No one thought. I mean, come on, it's naive to think that. And I did it. I admit that I did the same thing. Every generation does it. I think that's what they're doing with men. I think that's what we're arguably doing with the Trends as well. The Tren Ace is just so good. Use it, and you know how you're going to respond to it, and you don't have all the crap that comes with longer esters. Next.
This is literally what regular people think all steroid manufacturing looks like. That was Tanya Miller about your pond scum story.
Yeah.
All the underground gear. It's all like that. Yeah, I've stated my case on Tren E many times. I'm not a fan of it. Jim McDonald from Patreon. I'll be curious to hear what you have to say about this one. I have a kind of answer. He says, do you know of any protein powders, preferably unflavored or lightly vanilla flavored, that mix flawlessly in coffee? Scott, I've been using your suggestion of True Nutrition collagen in the morning, and it melts in my coffee perfectly. I drink several cups afterwards throughout the day, and I was wondering, basically he's saying, like, can I dose that up, get some protein in there?
You can, but I wouldn't. I mean, as you know, I think we have, and this is good. If the three of us, and I say three because Andrew, he's not here today, contract renegotiations, but if we all agreed and patted each other on the back and told each other how smart we are, it really wouldn't be we wouldn't have differing opinions. It would suck. I'm not a big fan of beef collagen. I just don't.
Of what?
Of collagen or beef collagen or that type of protein. It's just not a complete, to me, it's not a growth type.
It's not meant to be.
I understand, but that he's saying, can I use it?
No, he's asking for another. So he uses his collagen in the morning for health purposes. He's wondering, are there any other proteins out there that would mix as seamlessly as collagen does? Any other types of protein?
I thought he was asking if he could use that throughout the day to be beneficial.
It doesn't have a good profile for that.
This is a tough one because, obviously my Team Skip protein is just off the charts. It's so good. And it actually makes most people better looking too. So there's that. But you can't, it hasn't worked for me, but it works for everybody else. And just, people are like, what? It's not very attractive. You've been taking it for years. It mixes really well, but it has egg white protein in it. 1/3 of it is egg white protein. Well, that's not real thin. It's going to be kind of frothy. So that's not going to mix well in like a coffee. It mixes very well and doesn't get clumpy in a shaker cup.
Yeah.
But it is a thicker micellar casein too. So, and then whey, all in 1/3. If you want something that's just going to literally disappear and it's going to be very, very thin, your basic whey, your microfiltered, that type of whey is going to be very, very thin and very, very fine. And it's, I think, easier to mask if you don't like the texture of a thicker. And I don't think mine is thick, but yet it's certainly thicker than a regular, like a fine whey.
Yeah. And like True Nutrition's Pure Whey Isolate it's like super thin. I like it for contest preps, because it just like there's no extra binders and stuff in there. It literally, you drink it, it's like drinking water. It's through, it's in your system, and I can feel my muscles growing 30 seconds later. But
well, they do grow 30 seconds later, but then about a minute and a half later, you're hungry again.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it goes through you so fast because there's
really does
nothing to slow you down. So
I told him hydro. I told him like hydro might be but you know what though, like. Hydro kind of has like a bitter flavor to it. So if he's talking about unflavored and I guess you would have to take a little bit. How many grams Jim, you get back to us, take your unflavored whey and take your cup of coffee and just sprinkle a little in, stir, sprinkle a little more in and stir, test it and see how many grams you can get in and let us know,
Yep, let us know for sure.
I don't know about this. Tanya Miller said, why is everyone so fired up to put protein in their coffee? Is that a thing?
I don't know. Maybe it started with the collagen. I'm not real sure.
Dante told me he just mentioned it in passing. He was like, I put my collagen in my coffee every morning. I can't taste it, and so I started saying that. I tried it first of all, and I was like, holy crap, you can't taste it. I thought like you'd have to have some flavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's nothing. It just tastes like coffee. If you put 30 grams in, like a big old heap and scoop into a 10-ounce cup of coffee, there's like a little bit of more of like a creamy texture to the coffee, but there's not real much change. So I say that in the commercial. So that's where I say that, but I didn't know if anybody else is saying that.
Does True Nutrition still sell protein coffee?
I don't know if they do. I'm curious.
Because I got to tell you, I hope they do, because if it's still available, anyone listening, if you like protein in your coffee, don't put protein in your coffee. Get their protein coffee and mix it as a protein drink. Oh my goodness.
Oh, they do actually.
It is very good. And here's when I think about it. About 2 days after I put in my order to True Nutrition, and I only order... No.
It says vegan protein coffee.
It wasn't labeled vegan before, but maybe it just is vegan and it wasn't labeled that way before.
I know what you mean. It could be
the same thing. But the taste is incredible. You get the natural coffee caffeine because it literally has coffee in it. And it's just really, really good, and especially when you add ice to it, because then it's ice. I won't drink a protein drink without ice in it. I think a warm protein drink tastes like throw up.
That's it. Oh, that's gross.
That's the one, protein coffee. They do still sell it. Okay.
They do.
And what did I do? I put my order in 2 days ago. So, and I put it in every 2 months, so I have to wait for it. Wait for my next order to get it, and I'll forget about it again.
Vanilla Chino. I'm going to add it to my cart right now, and I'm going to buy this. Yes. All right. Which I buy all my True Nutrition stuff with my own money. So just throwing that out to you guys. What about this one? What's your thoughts on a leg routine of 2 to 3 working sets per exercise that are only close to failure with rep ranges of 8 to 16? Complete failure for 1 to 2 sets for the entire workout. He's doing a hip sled. So is that like hip sled? Is that like leg press? Okay.
I assume.
Leg extension, leg curl, and then finishing with a deep stretch hack squat. And he's doing it in that order. 2 to 3 working sets, complete failure for 1 to 2 sets for the entire workout. Other than that, he's working close to failure, 8 to 16 reps.
The short answer is do it and see how you progress. If you're recovering and you're progressing, don't get greedy. Mama said you don't fix what ain't broke. I know that's not grammatically correct, but it has that impact. It hits you. So my mom never really told me that. It's just a saying. Write it. If it works, write it. If it doesn't, then you feel like you're recovering very, very quickly, add more volume or add another, failure set to it. If you're not recovering, you're not progressing, the soreness is lingering for a long time, cut the volume back. That's the nature of this game. It's not, even if we give you an answer, a black and white answer to something, you still have to assess it on an individual, because there really are no black and white answers. We're given, I think you'd agree with this, the answers that we give, I know I'm giving them based on what I think what would hit close to the majority of the people listening.
Yeah.
But the outliers, they may not work at all.
Yeah.
They may have to be completely different. So you have to take what we're saying and then assess from there. If you're unable to assess, good luck in this game. You have to be able to assess and adapt and be able to tweak and change.
Got one more here. Question for the next show, and this is what I was referencing earlier. If you were a novice bodybuilder in 2024, where would you go to expand your knowledge base? Let's assume you already have a coach, but you don't want to bog them down with 100 questions a week. And I remember earlier, Skip, I was saying that like one of the reasons that what did I say about the calf raises? I said, like, take what Skip said, think about that, take what Dave Palumbo said, take what John said, and look at the similarity. Like, there were similarities in all three of what you said.
Absolutely.
There's those common threads. And so what works for Skip might be different than what worked for John. But they both found their way, and there are similarities in the path. That's the exact reason that I put this channel together, man. Like, my answer is not the be-all answer for anything, just like yours isn't. Just like Dave's isn't, and Andrew's isn't, Ron and Dusty and Scott Stevenson and Kuba. Like, but we all have our own experience, and we found things that have worked for ourselves and others. And that's how I had learned a lot, man, was by having the opportunity. Like, not everybody has the opportunity to talk to a coach like yourself who's been doing this for over 20 years. But if you listen to this podcast, you get to hear Skip talk for literally hours. He likes to talk, so he'll talk for hours. And everybody else. And you can start looking, because we'll all answer the same questions if you listen long enough. You know what I mean? And how do those answers, how are they similar? How do they differ? And then what works for you? That's my thought. The channel, this is the reason that I made this channel.
I can't argue. The only thing I would add is, and I think this is important to know, you're paying your coach, you're not able to get your answers or your questions answered. But podcasts like this, they give you the information for free. Here's the caveat, though. It's not specific to your situation. So ideally, you'd want a coach who will answer all your questions. And not every coach is like that. And I know this sounds like a sale. I'm not doing it, but I am one of those exceptions. I allow my clients to literally grill me, not with hypotheticals, like, well, what if somebody was doing this? No,
Yes.
Specific to your situation, I will answer and explain. And I always say this: don't ever work with someone and do something that they're telling you to do without them being able to explain why. And I like this because, number one, if they can't explain it, you shouldn't be working with them. That's number one. I don't ever ask a client to do something that I either haven't experienced or I can't explain why I want you to do it. And if they can't explain it, it's probably not their advice, it's someone else's. And because I've been in the industry for a long time, I don't like someone else getting paid to give my advice. I would just put it out there, just being completely honest. So get a coach. Doesn't mean you got a bad coach. What it means is the coach isn't fulfilling what. Now you have to be willing to pay for it.
It depends on the questions, though, too. I'm going to interrupt you, Skip. It depends on the questions because, like, you nailed it though with the hypotheticals. But if he's brand new, I know a lot of times brand new people will have just all the questions, and a lot of them are hypothetical. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if they're hypothetical, that's not fair because I understand you want to gain knowledge, but there is a time constraint and it's not related directly to you, then I'm going to pull back on that and be like, if it's related to you, your specific situation, I will answer your questions till I'm blue in the face. And I'm not the only one. So it's not just hey, sign me up for Skip. It's just that it's kind of the exception to the rule because a lot of trainers will roll their eyes and be like, bruh, just execute the plan. Just do what I'm telling you to do. And this is why, and let's move on. But why? Because it's very, very time consuming. If you're, running 70, 80 clients and they all have, 22 questions twice a week, that's very, very time consuming.
Yeah, I've had, and I do try to explain things, and I've got a couple things. I'm going to try to be a little contrary here, Skip, to you. I'll say this. I think that I always try to explain things. In fact, I think I over-explain stuff because and I think we both are kind of like that where we're kind of passionate about what we're doing. And we want people the reason I want people to understand what we're doing is because they're more likely to be on board with it. You know what I mean?
They're building trust. There's a trust component there. Absolutely.
So that's a huge aspect of it. Sometimes I don't have the answer. Sometimes I have to think about why we want to do it myself. And here's the analogy that I use. If we're driving down the street and let's say you're a novice driver, I've been driving all my life, and you ask me, say we're on the freeway and I change lanes. Maybe traffic's not even heavy, but I change lanes. And you ask me, well, why did you just change lanes right now? I might not even be able to process, I might not have even thought about it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes there's an intuition that tells you that that's a better place to be in. And you take that lane and then things unfold and you figure it out. I think that I think that when we enter bodybuilding, especially today, maybe in the past, it was too far in the other direction. Dude, do you remember 20 years ago, a coach was a guru and he had this magical secret knowledge that you didn't understand. You just followed the plan. Whereas now everything has to have a scientifically backed answer with data. But I don't think that bodybuilding is just science. I think that it's a combination of science and gut intuition based off your experience. And it reminds me of when I was in photography, I had a professor that said photography was the bastard child of art and science. And in photography, in the darkroom, you used chemicals and light exposure and timing to create and generate your vision, to create what you wanted, the way you wanted it to be. We do the exact same thing in bodybuilding. It's all based off science, but there's art and gut and intuition and feel that also goes into it. And I think that to be a good coach, it takes that, and that's not always something that you can put a word to. It's just, sometimes it's going through that process of maybe it's a small change and then seeing what the result is and then knowing that it works. Do you know what I mean?
But you just explained it. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't mean, when I say explain, I don't mean, because I can't do this. I can't break down things to a cellular level. I'm just not that smart.
Okay.
So here's an example. Someone asked me about skip loading. I can't explain it based on studies and at the cellular level what's going on. I can explain it as far as the results and what's going to happen, and this is what's likely to happen. This is why we do that. It's like gas on a fire, the metabolism, and then we pull back, and then we do that. Versus just do it because I said to do it. I mean, we sometimes train. Here's a better way to put it: trainers who don't have a lot of knowledge tend to get more defensive with the just execute. Just do what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
When really what they're saying is, I can't give you a reason why. It doesn't have to be, like you say, this study-based thing. And I agree with you on the science. You said a lot of good shit right there. Because I have told you, I really think that we get a bad rap sometimes, especially the experienced trainers, by saying that it's not somehow science-based or anything. It is in itself, because what we're doing is trial and error, controlling as many variables as we can and hypothesizing what the outcome is going to be and heading in that direction. Are all the variables locked? No, but they aren't in studies either. That's the argument against studies. So I'm not, and this goes back to the real. I'm not against studies. I never said that. What I said, and people in large amounts missed, was not to rely on them for your training. Listen to the studies. No problem with that.
Yeah.
Listen to people who have done for a long time before that study was ever done. And then pick apart both sides and come to this middle ground, which is exactly what we just said with the leg training.
Yeah.
It's being able to assess and everything and move forward. My example was that one arm side lateral. No one big is doing that one arm side lateral. And I'm not going to believe for 1 second that because it says the ECM or EMG or OPP machine says that it creates more stimulus in that muscle at that angle, that is going to be more beneficial. It's not, or it would be done. People would be doing it, but there's big shoulders everywhere who have never done it. So there's just more to it than just, and that was my argument on the podcast. If people would have listened to the podcast, they
just heard the reel. You guys,
everyone is small.
Skip's talking about a reel that we had go literally viral. It's close to
I had to move it in, dude. There.
It's like 750,000 views, I think, at this point, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, and the comments are still coming. Now I'll literally check my Instagram and I'm like, and then I'll see part of the comment and I'm like, I don't even care. Then the next day I'm like, I'm gonna get in here and own this kid because I'm tired of being argued with. And people do this. I do this. I admit to it. I own it. I want to know something about the person who responds. So when you don't have a profile picture, you make my blood boil because I don't get to know that. I don't get anything. I don't know anything about that person.
Yeah.
Arguing with me. But when I see that it's like a 20-year-old kid with an exceptionally subpar physique who's been training for a year and they want to argue with me, and my wife always tells me, why do you take it so personally? I am taking it personally, but I'm defending myself based on my experience for so long. It's so warped that someone would argue with you when they don't have experience in the area that they're arguing. I can't fathom, but that's the world we live in. And I need to get to the point where I can accept that. And I am not there yet.
No, it's going to take time. I heard another really good analogy one time. It was, once again, Dave Palumbo He said about Chris Aceto, he said, you're like one of those little old Italian ladies who never have a recipe for their sauce, but it turns out perfect every time they make it. They don't, they just put a little of this in, a little of that. They don't really even kind of know directly what they're doing. I mean, they know, right? They know, but it's an art. There's an art. They taste it.
There's no question. And there is a gut feeling. There is this instinctive, but that's based. If you have been doing something for a few years and you have a gut feeling, I don't want to hear from you. But if you have been like leading people financially to as a financial advisor, and you've been doing it for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, I'm probably going to find value in that versus going, well, I don't know, the guy who's been doing it for 2 years, he's right out of school. I'm pretty sure, emoji, 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 laughing emoji. I'm pretty sure he knows what he's talking about. It blows my mind. So I like that. It's gut feeling, it's instinct, but that's all based on where it can look like on the surface. It's just like, well, try this. Yeah. That's not what we're saying.
I think our brains have so much more to them, like than we're able. I think that we are making, like if you make a decision as a coach, you're filtering that through all the memories that you have from all your previous experiences. Some of that stuff you don't even remember anymore, but you've developed an intuition as a result, and it's all coming out in that decision. And that's the thing that we can't always put our finger on to say, this is exactly why, and sound really smart doing it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work better than somebody who's going by just a textbook. I would take that over, well, this should work formula any day of the week. The guy who has 20 years experience, Yep.
And the vast majority of the time, you're right. Not from an ego standpoint, but you end up being right. And that is the experience versus, oh, sure hope this works.
You know what the greatest feeling is, Skip? And I know you've had to have felt this. I've had it, and I've talked to Victoria about it, where I'll have a client, and we're doing our end of the day like dog walk or something, and which I still have to do tonight on my own. I'll say, just something about this. We're 8 weeks into the diet, and it's not sitting right with me. It's like I'm not happy with how it's going. It's not that the person isn't making progress, but I'm just not feeling in that groove yet. And there's a period of time with certain situations. I'm not saying like this individual, but some diets, it's just like it's not doing what I want yet. It's not doing what I want yet. Yeah, it's coming along or whatever, but it's not doing what I want. And then there's that moment where like we got it. Yep. And it's not that anything's really different, but like, like we fucking got it now, and it changes everything. And they might not even see the difference. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. There's just so many stories over the years. I just had a prep with a client this last year, great friend of mine, and it didn't go crappy. It was just force. And you know how it works.
Yeah.
When you force the body.
I know what you mean.
It was forced. Then it was forced some more. Then it's change this. Let's back off a little bit. Let's force again. And the outcome was a pro card. So, it sometimes, I'll be honest with you. Probably, well, in large part because this client is a friend of mine. But it was, when I got the message, it was cathartic. It was this, and I loved it. It ranks up there in the top 3 or 5 feelings I've had in over 20 years of working with clients. Now, I admit, because I also had a friendship with this person. Sometimes you just have those clients that cross that boundary, and you're good with them. That boundary gets crossed because you allow them, because there's so many parallels, and you just genuinely click with this person. That doesn't mean that I want those people to win more, but it hits you internally and personally. It just hits you differently. I don't know that it's better, or it hits you differently, and to watch this client battle through and no question, nothing. And thankfully we had a history, because if it was the first time, they may have been, I don't know if you know what you're doing, because I'm not responding. And then to have that outcome was it's a great feeling. I know that feeling, and honestly, sometimes those feelings come at the best time because maybe you haven't had that feeling maybe not in a long time, but in a while where I like the challenge. I arguably like those situations better than the preps that go, they're a cakewalk.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that.
And you're not challenged you're not challenged as a trainer. It's like, wow, it's been going great. Boy, it's easy work. It's easy money. Yeah, okay. Oh, that was great. But when there's that challenge there and you have to really dig down, you got to really pull those years out and go, this is the move, and really not second guess it. This is the move. This is what we need to do, and then it all finishes in that dramatic climax of waking up to that, because I sleep weird hours. So when my clients go on stage for prejudging, that's typically like, okay, at this point we're on cruise control. You're not going to be texting me. I don't tell them this, but you're not going to be texting me much because you're going to be involved in everything. You'll text me after the prejudging, let me know what's going on. So I zonk out, and then when I wake up, I'm either waking up and waiting on a message, or that message is waiting for me. And it was just really, really, it was just a really good feeling.
I know those feelings, man. It's special. I think the other times I've had opposite of that, when it maybe didn't work out, and for some reason, like maybe we got through, maybe it wasn't even a competitor, but whatever happens down the road, maybe it never really clicked, and then you find out later, because it's rare that I ever have that point where like we can't eventually make it work. You find out, they say, oh, hey, remember, back when I was working with you, I got to tell you, I was drinking that whole time, or I wasn't following the plan the way you told me to, or they work with somebody else, and then you find out they were using mayo with all their meals, which did happen. Yeah. I had one guy, it just didn't click. I couldn't get it to click to the point where you might even be listening to this. I consulted with a coach that I highly respect, broke the whole thing down. Like, I don't know what's going on. And finally I said, and this is rare. It's very rare, but I was like, I don't think I'm the guy for you. Can I help set you up with somebody else? And I did. And finally, down the road, it turned out he was eating mayo with all of his meals.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't want to sound cold and insensitive, but I'm just being honest. If a client doesn't do well because of something they did, I don't want to say I'm apathetic to it, but I'm not upset. But that's so totally on them and outside of my control that I literally think.
Can you call it? Can you call it when they aren't following the plan? Because I'm not good at that, man. To be completely honest, there are times, but there's times that like
there's ways to test them. There's ways to test them, and I have one of the ones, and there's gonna. Hopefully there's not someone listening that's going to work with me and know my tricks now. But one of my tricks is if they say number one, if a client's and it's usually not competitors. It's rarely competitors. If their calories are going down and their cardio is going up and they're not getting leaner and they're not bothered by it, that's number one that's a red flag right there. So then, you make another move or you make another couple moves and there's small talk, and then, I'm not, I didn't progress this week. I'm going to skip load this weekend. It starts to click. So then if it gets to a point where I feel in between the lines, because I've been communicating with people for over 20 years this way, and there's a lot of information in between those lines. There's a pattern of communication that you can pick up on. Most of the time, the large majority of the time. Thing is, it is never a good idea to call out a client. You just can't.
Yeah.
Call them out unless they own it and are accountable to it, because most people will fall back on, well, he doesn't know unless I tell him. So then they can become defensive, or they just kind of poop. No, I'm doing everything right. So you have to coerce them to tell you. And if they don't tell you, and I do have tricks to that, which I won't give away. Not to you, but to anybody else.
I love this.
But it's a manipulative thing. But I worked with kids in residential and treatment for
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
kids
very
won't
good
tell
at
you shit. Kids will
I'm
lie.
also a parent of 4 kids. So
Yeah.
So I'm very good at manipulating. But if I can't get it out of them and I still think, and those signs are there, all I'll do is I will decrease calories rapidly and so much to the point where I know I'm starving you, and this is not possible to maintain more than probably 3 or 4 days. And if you go a week and you say that your hunger hasn't changed and you haven't moved, you're full of shit. Now I'm going to get it out of you. So then I
That's a good point.
And they, in their defense, 99% of them at that time will own it. They come back with okay. It's almost like they're going, okay, he's been doing this a long time. He knows I'm full of shit. And I can't keep this lie going anymore.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, they realize. I could see that, man. I think I may have done that a couple times where we figured it out that way. Yeah. But I've had a couple times, man, where I was thinking of 2 where I felt like, man, I couldn't figure that person out, and then I found out later, and because it's rare that happens, that you know what I mean, you can't figure someone out. And I even told the guy, I was like, man, this is a rare situation. I actually need to consult with someone else. This is the first time that I actually had to do that, and then I learned why later. So yeah. And
then the worst part of the training, that part's easy. Worst part is training clients who are competitors, and everything goes great, and it goes great for 2 or 3 years, maybe over 3, 4, or 5 shows.
Yeah.
And for no reason, they go and work with somebody else as they're climbing the ladder, and you have that rapport with them. Yeah. And you want to tell them, it's not about me and my personal feelings. It's about the fact that you're going to make so much more progress continuing with me versus arguably having to start over with a different methodology, and that trainer having to figure you out. And they're right, even great trainers, it's still the first show, so they're figuring things out. What makes them a good trainer is they get so much closer to that 100% that you never hit. It's all about getting as close to 100% as you can. No one hits 100%. Even the best condition is not. There's always something that can be better. So you have to start over, and that new trainer has to try to get you as close to 100% and then build from there. That first show is so crucial, because after that, it's so much easier.
You know what they're capable of.
Exactly. And you have a very clear understanding of how their body responds, and especially when it comes down to the last few days before the show, even more so compared to the dieting and getting lean. It's hard. Those are the hardest ones for me, because it's just like, and then of course you want them to be successful. I'm not a vindictive or vengeful person. I want people, when they leave me, to be successful. I genuinely want that. So I do have a very, very good feeling when, on the occasion that does happen, that they do come calling 2, 3 years later, a year later, sometimes 4 or 5 years later, they come back. Then it's like, oh, okay, this is a good feeling too. It's the ups and downs. It's in every industry, it's in every job, but that's I think a lot of people think this is all roses. It's all easy. Oh, we go to Starbucks every day and pull out our laptop, and we have our little latte and with no whip and everything else. And oh, look at me, I'm a business owner, and I make all this money.
You know what's been cool, man? Like this is something that's new to me. I guess it's an evolution in my coaching, and I'll make it real quick. That I have a couple clients now, 2 of them this year, that worked with me early on when I first was coaching, like back when I was just mainly coaching people locally, and now they're no longer competing. Like I helped them with shows, multiple shows, like year after year. Back then I just worked with people just for the prep, it wasn't year round. And now these guys are in their early 30s, and they've reached out to me to work with them just for lifestyle. And it's been 10 years later plus, 15 years later. And now it's like, I'm a better coach, And in some of them, like, they haven't followed up and continued like focusing on the sport. They've got a career now. Sure. And now I get to like do new stuff with them, and they get to, they expected me to diet them a certain way. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's a different game. We're doing something different. I'm different. You're different. Our goals are different. And it's been a really cool freaking experience to get to, like, basically it's like reconnecting with old friends. And, you know, it's cool, man. That's new to me. That's something that's just happened this year.
Well, you know, you're a veteran. You've been around for a while. You have established yourself. That reputation is there. I mean, you were good enough back then that they came back around to you later. I mean, I've had it happen in the kids. Oh, yeah, you know, I raised a family. I've been in my career. I've let myself go. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, my God, I remember when your daughter was 2 years old. She's 17 years old. Like, what? Oh, my God, time, you know. So then you kind of catch up. Oh, my wife is doing this. It is. It's a very good, you know, and that's why sometimes I have to remind myself, because I do a lot of bitching behind the scenes sometimes, because I've been doing this for a long time, and it's hard sometimes not to focus. The industry is the same way, not to focus on the negatives or the bad people or the bad seeds or the bad apples, because there's just a lot of really good experiences that we sometimes lose track of that make what we do still appealing and still so enjoyable after all these years, that keeps me invested. Those things make me go, oh, that's why I do it. That's why I put up with the bad apple over here, you know, because of all these other things that are positive. So,
well, listen, everybody who's watching the end of this is like truly like unique, cool stuff. This is a fun conversation, man. And I'm grateful to have the chance to have it with you. They got some, like, for anybody who's coaching, like, I feel like this last little piece was some serious gold. So there's that.
Yeah. And it's not anything that a trainer, I think, or someone who would want to get into training would be thinking, oh, I guess that would be important too. Rapport with your clients is huge. Not forced, but rapport with your building relationships with your client. It's about basically it's retention, client retention. And just from the business perspective, not just being a trainer and knowing bodybuilding and knowing nutrition and if you know this compound from that compound, but just having decent business acumen is vitally important. And being able to build those relationships with your clients is huge. It's huge, because they can come back around 15, 20 years later. Yeah. Or they're telling somebody else 15 years later the office or over a beer, hey, work with this cat. I worked with him. Oh, my God, you look like that's not you. You know, you Photoshop someone's face on your body, and they reach out to you. That takes away all the social media crap of, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It doesn't take it away, but it puts it in perspective. That's not, and people think that that's the end all and that's everything, and it's not. Build a reputation, build your name, build trust with people, and build relationships with people. You'll do fine. You'll make money. You'll enjoy it. You can pick and choose your clients versus taking on every client that comes to you, because you don't want your kids eating ramen for the next month. I remember those days. I had to take every client, Scott, every one of them.
Oh, I know it.
Every one of them. And sometimes I just feel like, oh my God, I hate this. Oh, this sucks. Is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Guys, we appreciate you tuning in, and check out teamskip.com. You can reach out to Skip there. mcnallydiets@gmail.com. You can hit me up there. Andrew's not with us. He's at Nationals, or he's traveling to Nationals right now. You can go to bodyberry.com to reach out to Andrew there. And of course, go to truenutrition.com. You can get your protein coffee over there. I'm going to order it and try it for myself. Supplementsource.ca for Canadians. And of course, thank you to everybody from Patreon. Thank you to everybody hanging out in the live stream. And thank you to everybody from the Think Big Facebook group, guys, for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Skip. And we are...